I would post content at work all the time. I was, to be honest, like I wasn't always like the best employee, but I got the job done. But they all knew I was never secretive. Like I'd be like, hold on, and like showing what I was eating.
This is Beyond Influential, with Brittany Crystal. Join Brittany as she chats with today's thought leaders about the power of influence, how it's developed, and how they get us to consume both on and offline. Here's your host, Brittany Crystal.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Beyond Influential. For those who are new to the podcast, my name is Brittany Crystal, and I'm a personal brand expert and social growth consultant. I work with business and creative thought leaders, executives, and influencers to grow their industry influence online. I'm also a non-practicing lawyer. So this is episode 20, and I just wanted to take a second to thank you all for listening. Podcasting has quickly become my favorite kind of content to make, and I always appreciate hearing from the people who are checking it out. So if you enjoyed this episode or any of the other episodes, I'd love for you to rate and review it on iTunes to let me know which episode has been your favorite so far. I'll be choosing some of these to share on Instagram, so feel free to leave your handle in the review. So today's episode is with Dr. Mona Vand. I met Mona when I was working for Gary Vaynerchuk on his personal brand team, and her brand has just come such a long way since then. She has such a serious fan base who is tuning in daily to get her wellness advice, and I really love this episode because Mona was completely honest with her transition from pharmacist to influencer, and I just believe that anyone who wants to grow their influence online can learn a lot from this episode. So I hope you enjoyed this episode with Dr. Mona Vand. Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Beyond Influential. Today I'm here with Dr. Mona Vand. She's a doctor of pharmacy, but definitely not your typical pharmacist. She has helped over 100,000 people on social media alone, looking to her for advice on health, wellness, and vegan lifestyle. Since I met Mona a few years ago, I've been personally watching her content and her brand evolved and truly love what she's putting out there. You really have no idea how proud I am. And I'm so happy that you're here with me today.
That's so sweet. You have really been there. And we're talking to you like, what was it, like a year and a half, 2 years ago? With like stressing over growth or like content.
You really just like niched down and got it focused. For people who don't know who you are, can you give a little background on who you are and then even before pre-background on how you got there?
Well, like you gave me a nice intro. My name's Mona. Traditionally, I guess I'm a pharmacist. That's what I was supposed to do with my life. But once I finished pharmacy school and started working, like day one, knew that this is just not what I wanted to do with my life for just a few different reasons. Basically took like the next 3 or 4 years to like figure out like how I could get to a different place, what I wanted to do. Like that's when blogging just kind of came about. And then now I'm here. Like that's the short version, but I don't.
Yeah. Take us back a little bit and like to when you even became interested in health and pharmacy. And then kind of what year was it when you even started blogging?
So I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. Actually, I really wanted to be a news anchor. I thought like TV really excited me, but my mom, I love my parents, but they were very like, you can't major in journalism. Like you won't get a job, like very like, major in Persian culture is very like science, lawyer, like do something like that. So I liked science and figured I'd do something in medicine. So I applied to pharmacy school because there was a direct program. So when I was 18, I went in and it was like a 6-year doctorate. You didn't have to like reapply to grad school. So I was like, my mom was like, we talked it through and I thought it was like a good start for me. So I went to school. I actually loved what I was learning. So when I was in it, I was like happy and proud and like excited. And I was like, I'm going to graduate when I'm 24 and I'm going to make like $120,000 a year. And I was like super pumped. So my parents live on split coasts. So my dad lives in LA and I knew that's where like I would eventually settle down and my life would be because I was in school in Boston. So I came to LA and started working. And like the first day I worked in a pharmacy, I went home crying. I remember calling my brother on the drive home and I was like, this is so bad. Like, I can't do this every day. This is like, is this going to be my life? And I all of a sudden got this like overwhelming feeling of like, I have to answer to someone every day, which might sound crazy, but I kind of felt like I was like a kid. I wasn't treated like an adult. When you have like a boss, the concept of someone telling you when you can eat lunch, when you can take a break, it really freaked me out. And I'm like, okay, wait, now I don't get summer breaks anymore. Like I'm done with school. So this is it. Like I'm stuck in this thing for the rest of my life. Besides a 2-week break, I have to pay off like $200,000 in student loans. Like, what am I supposed to do? So it was a really scary moment, I think.
Yeah, was it the job specifically? Like if you did a different pharmacy job, would it have been better? Because I kind of had an experience similar to you, except I went the law route. And after trying even a few jobs in law school, like being an associate, I
Mhm.
knew it wasn't for me. And people even now are like, oh, well, what if you did X kind of law? Or I just think the entire industry was not right for me.
That's, I think that's what it was when I first graduated. I remember thinking like, so retail pharmacy, like CVS, Rite Aid, so that surprisingly that pays the most. And so I was like, okay, I'll pay off my loans. I'll do that. Like I just was like, whatever pays the most, I thought was going to be great. And I kind of just had this, to be totally honest, at that point was like, at some point I'll get married and have kids and like won't work as much. And it was like just this mentality that I think a lot of women have at some point, which is
Mhm.
nothing wrong with, like, that's just what
Yeah.
I thought at the time. So when I started working for Rite Aid, it was the job environment. Like, I think a lot of people just assume you kind of just have to do it and that's life. But I was like, I don't want to walk into this like fluorescent lit pharmacy every day.
That's how I felt when I was sitting in the
Like,
office. I was like, this fluorescent lighting, I
yeah, it was
can't do it.
depressing. I was like, I don't want to listen to the same mix every day for 10 hours, stand on my feet, like work with no one that has anything in common with me. Like it wasn't also like I wasn't with my peers. It wasn't also like I wasn't with my peers, much, much older or like much, much younger. Techs were like 16 and then everyone else was like in their 50s. I was like also living in a new city. Like, how am I going to meet anyone? So within like 8 months, I left Rite Aid and started working for this like closed door pharmacy, which was like an office job. So it was like 5 of us back there. I got faxes in. I was like, this is amazing. I can wear jeans to work. I can wear a hoodie. It's super chill. It's like 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I'll be good. And then like shortly after that, realized I still wasn't fulfilled. So at first it was like, I hate this like busyness. You're like a robot working at something like, retail. But then I also realized I wasn't like fulfilled and happy. And that's when blogging was like up and coming. And actually, one of the first friends I met in LA was a news anchor for KTLA. And she was like, you should be like that expert that comes on like, when it's like flu season. So that like kind of planted the seed.
Smart.
Yeah, right. And I was like, how can I do that? So then it was my whole mission. How can I be that person that goes on TV and is like the expert? So I started seeing all these girls blogging about like beauty. And I was like, well, maybe I can do this with like a medical perspective and like a different twist. And, I think I had this idea for a good 2.5 years before I did anything with it, because I didn't really start it till I was like 27, 28. This is when I was like 24. So that went on for a while. And then I ended up asking a friend of mine, I was like, hey, because she knew how to build websites. I was like, can you build me a website? So she told me, you need to go see this woman, Marky Costello. She's this woman in LA. She'll teach you everything about branding. And honestly, the word branding was nothing back then.
No, when I was in law school, my job didn't even exist at that point.
Yeah, I was like, what's a brand? And now it's like, I mean, God, it's most used word ever. 5-year-olds have a brand.
Yeah, they do.
They do. They really
you
do.
Start young.
Seriously, I'm envious. So I went to see this woman, Marky, and apparently she's like the woman who teaches. Like she's taught so many hosts how to host. Like that's her thing, how to be a host. And I still didn't know how this was relevant to me, but she had this boot camp. If you ever wanted to meet her, you had to go through her boot camp. It was like this 10-hour day. It was like $600, which was like a lot of money for me to invest. But I did it. And it was literally like you had to go up and read off a teleprompter. And I was terrified because I'd never done anything on camera. I was like, this is so not for me. But I sat through it all. And then after I went to her and I was like, I want to have a meeting with you. And, that was a month later. I had to pay like another $500 to sit with her. So then I got to the meeting and I told her my ideas and like what I wanted to do. And she was like, she just like loved it. She used to call me the model pharmacist. That was like our thing. And I remember sitting in the meeting, it was on a Saturday, and she was telling me like how she wanted to brand me, like how big this could be. And this could be as big as I wanted it to be. And I remember like actually getting emotional, and she was like, are you getting emotional? And I was like, yeah, because like, this is what I want to do. It was like that moment where I figured it out. So I actually give her credit because then she had me sign up for her classes for like 6 months, and I learned how to speak on camera and how to read off a teleprompter. And that's, I think, what gives me like a lot of confidence on camera now, where I feel super comfortable. That's like scary for someone who has no idea how to be in that world,
Yeah, so how long did it actually take to get comfortable on camera, and what exactly did she teach you? Because I'm super fascinated by the idea of kind of getting camera trained.
Yeah, she was like, well, listen, you need to be doing a lot of video. Like she was like the one who first taught me, like, you need to connect with your audience. So I'd go up there and we'd like read off a teleprompter, and I would just, you don't know what you're doing. You're just reading. And she's like, who is in your audience? Like, tell me, is it a girl? How old is she? What does she do for a living? Like,
that is exactly what we do now.
Literally, she
Yeah.
knew it back then. It was actually it's so funny to think back on. And it still took a long time. Even when I was doing it, I'd get up there and she'd be like, you're not connecting. Or a lot of times they told me I wasn't like energetic enough, which is one thing I'll say has still worked for me now, because I think do you is like a big thing. And I'm myself, and I'm not like this crazy wild person, you know, like I'm not that ecstatic on camera, but I'm just normal. And I think people can relate to that. So I took her classes and then just started branding myself. I definitely made some mistakes. Like I didn't pay enough attention to social media at first. I thought that like
a lot of people didn't at that time.
I had to like build this big website and make it this big production. Whereas like if I had just started doing social, but of course there's a million things you wish you knew.
Yeah. So when you were starting to do that, what social platforms were out at the time? Was that mostly Facebook? What year is this?
This was 2000. I met her at the end of 2013, started taking her classes in 2014. So Twitter was out and Twitter was like, and I was on Twitter like personally. Also, like all my friends in LA happened to be like models, actors. So I had kind of a following on Twitter, but just because my friends were there. So Twitter was a thing, but like I think Instagram was brand new then. It was there, but like I wasn't even on it. I didn't even get on it till like a year later. So I was still working like full time. So I would like leave work, race across town to go to her classes. So I like was basically like 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. like my days were taken. But that's how it all started. And I was like, had never felt like more alive. I remember thinking when I was in pharmacy school, I was studying till like 2 a.m., whatever. And not like it's fun. I remember just thinking, I can't wait till the day where I can just chill and watch a movie. But then for the next year or two, I'd come home at 5 and like, what would I do? Just watch TV, maybe work out. And it was kind of boring. Like there was nothing I was working towards. So once I started doing this with her and I got that excitement back, like that exhaustion of it when you're doing something you want to do and there's a goal is so exciting. It's a different kind of, it's a different kind of hustle.
Yeah. So when did you start actually posting stuff on a blog? And was that kind of in conjunction with actually getting on camera? Because I know you've been on shows like The Doctors and you actually have been on TV. You reached that goal, but was that still the dream at that point?
It was like, there were so many different levels. I also remember, I ended up like partnering with some people that wanted to, right after her, I had an investor that wanted to invest in my brand, which to me was like so crazy then, like someone wants to pay me money to do this. It was actually a mistake because when you're not in complete control of what you want to do, I think that's one of the things I learned the most. Working with them, they really wanted to try to brand me a different way and have me be someone I wasn't. And it resonated on camera so badly. I was like really stiff. I hated what I was talking about. Like even the way I dressed, I didn't like it. So that definitely delayed me for like 7 or 8 months. But once I started doing my own thing and started posting, I actually hired PR for like 5 months, which was cool. Like they're the ones who helped me get on The Doctors. It was good. I will say, I feel like now it's kind of easy to be your own PR.
Yep.
Or when you have like a manager or your own social media, like you can make a press kit. So I don't know that PR is the best choice for me anymore. But back then, I guess it was one thing that got me on. So that was cool.
So the people who wanted to develop your brand, how did they even find you? And then what was the goal, I guess, for them in terms of like, who did they want you to be?
I asked his opinion. I was like, hey, what do you think of my brand? And he's like, oh, let me send it to my people in New York and see. And they're like,
what was his job?
He was an investor and he had a production company for different things, but he was just, someone I looked up to and was just asking an opinion on. I don't even know why I asked him, to be honest. It was a very random. Then they were like, we'd love to invest. And I think like to me, I was so desperate to stop working in a pharmacy, which is also like not a good place to be in when you're so desperate to get out of something. I was like, if someone's going to match my salary and I can do this, then I was literally willing to give up more than half of my brand, which also back then just didn't make sense. The whole thing didn't make sense. So on camera, I don't dress like overly sexy at all, but I think I dress, somewhat like, I'm a woman, like, and they didn't want me to at all dress how I would. Like they wanted to put me in these like button up collared shirts and like blazers or like slacks. And I was like, you do realize that when I worked at the pharmacy, I wore black yoga pants. Like I am not a slacks girl. It's just not my thing. And they were like, you can't look too attractive because you're going to intimidate people and I was like, well, I should just be myself. I don't think I'm intimidating. I think I can inspire maybe. Like, this is how I work out. This is what I do. Like, it didn't have to be. And they kept telling me that it was too LA. Like, I couldn't be myself. I had to be more like tone it down. And honestly, like, for anyone listening to this, like, it's not even like I dress overly sexy.
No, not at all. Like,
not at all.
I just relate to this because I wear basically the same kind of clothes that Mona wears. It's
Right.
just like normal
just
clothes.
like tight yoga pants and like maybe like a workout sports bra that's not even a full-on sports bra, like midriff or something. That was too much for them. Anything.
Well, were they having you talk about very clinical things? Did you have to appear like,
That's
lab
what
coat?
and they were like, well, do you want to be Walmart and make billions, or do you want, I remember her saying, or do you want to be Neiman Marcus? And I was like, Neiman Marcus.
Yeah, I would have chosen Neiman Marcus too.
Right. I want to be myself.
Yeah.
That's actually like a silly example, but it's such a good point because, would you rather make 10 times more money and be something that you're not and not enjoy what you're doing, or make good money and really, really enjoy yourself? 100% the second one.
I think that's something both of us have talked about a lot recently.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for me personally, it's the second one.
Definitely.
The many times in my life I've tried to do something because I thought it was the smart move monetarily,
Mm-hmm.
even though I didn't love it. It never worked out.
Never.
I couldn't sustain it.
Because one thing I remember, like, one of my mentors said once was like, if you're not doing what you love, someone else is going to beat you at it. Because
I like that.
Right. Because someone else will work harder because they love it. So if you're going to do something like a side business that you care about, it better be something you love, or else you're never going to win at it. So, once I did my own thing, luckily it was a very amicable, like, hey, like, this isn't working out. I'm going to do my own thing. And once I just started being myself, like, I just have built the best community, and there's a way to relate to people. Like, people just want you to be real because that's like what people can relate to. So that's when I really started focusing on social. And even now, like, I have a website and blog, but social is like my thing. It's like every day, like the Snapchat, the Instagram, like the stories, all of that.
So were you vegan at this time, or when did the vegan kind of part of your life come into your brand?
That's actually funny too, because I was healthy before that. I was definitely like, my last year of college is when I started like really getting healthy. Like, I think it was my last year I was on rotations and I actually had the time to work out. Whereas before I was studying so much and it was so crazy that I didn't. And once I like got addicted to like a healthy lifestyle, it really that was the first experience of like, wow, I found something that I'm really passionate about. It was like wellness and health. And I think the second one was entrepreneurship. And I think you have no idea what's in you. Like, I thought that I wanted to have like, and this is going to sound bad, I was like, I just want to like have a rich husband that I really love and like babies and like not have to work. And that's really my mentality. And now, I mean, I could marry a billionaire and I'd still do exactly what I'm doing because it makes you feel good. Like, it's your thing. You have to have passion for something.
Yeah, and I don't think that sounds bad at all. I think it's one of those things that people don't want to say out loud in public, but so many women do think that way.
Right.
And you're kind of expecting like, oh, maybe you don't want to be a professional in something because by 30, you got to have those kids.
Yeah,
and
you better be married by the time you're 30.
Yeah. And so having something else that sustains you is what keeps you from going crazy after you do have kids, if you have kids.
Exactly. And that's still something I want to do one day. But I also remember thinking like, I want to be able to have something I love and enjoy and I can do on my own time. So like, let's say I'm home with my infant and I can still work on what I'm doing. But I had no idea that I had it in me. And then once I got a little taste of it, I was like, having passion or fire for something is such a better feeling. And, and I think when you don't experience it, you don't know, but if you can dig to find it, it just makes your life so much better.
So you leave these guys.
Right. So I leave these guys. So when I partnered with them, I left the pharmacy for like 8 months. We did get one really big sponsorship in that paid me out. So I didn't have to like work for 8 months. I had this money coming in. Then I left them and I was like, well, I'm out of money. I guess I have to go back to work, which is like the worst feeling in the world. And this was actually a really hard time for me because I got rid of my apartment and I was like, all right, you know what? I'll move back in like with my dad for like a little bit. That lasted 1 week. So literally 1 week. So I ended up staying with a friend for a few weeks and like I ended up living with my friend, a girlfriend of mine for like 2 or 3 years.
Is that when I met you or during that time?
Yes, you met me at that time. You met me at that time. It was really nice. So I was just paying like less rent than having my own apartment. And I started working part-time at this pharmacy. I will say the pharmacy that I went back to was like this independent. I loved the owners. It was definitely the best job environment that I've ever had. So it wasn't like the worst thing in the world, but it still wasn't for me. And when I started working there, I told them, I was like, look, this is what I'm doing. Like, this is my main goal. I was like very honest. And I said, I can work, but like, this is what I'm balancing. And they're like, totally fine. So it was like nice to be open about something like that too, and just be able to do what I was doing. So I worked there for about a year and a half. And then just about like 9 or 10 months ago, I stopped when things started picking up. So really, I haven't completely been on my own that long. It's been less than a year.
So what was your goal at that point when you kind of took back your brand and you were like, okay, who did you want to be at that point? Because you already were getting on television.
Right. So then I remember when they were telling me to like dress a certain way, be a certain way, they were like, you want to be like that, like Dr. Raj, and be on like CNN. And as cool as that kind of sounded for me, I was like, well, that's not really what I wanted to do. And I wanted to be myself and just kind of, and I remember saying like, even friends or family members would be like, what's your 5-year plan? Like, what's your goal? Like, what's your product? And I was like, I don't have any of that. Here's what I want to do. I want to build leverage in a community. And then I want to have the freedom to be able to do a bunch of things. Maybe I'll write a book. Maybe I'll have a product. Maybe I'll have a TV show. So that was like, that's the vision I had. And it's hard for, I think the older generation had a hard time seeing that too.
I was going to just ask you, I come from my mom's Latin, but I was raised Jewish. My dad's Jewish. And, my options were going to be doctor or lawyer. And I don't know if they fully understand what it is I do now. Does your family understand what you do?
Just like literally like you're preaching to the choir. Now they get it. Actually, I was talking to Lauren about this on her podcast the other day. I was like, yeah, they never get it. And she's like, oh, of course. But then once they start to get it, they're like, we knew you had it in you all along. I was like, exactly.
That's exactly it. They're like, well, we're not sending you money for anything. And they get it. But I know that if anybody asks what I do for a living, they're like, oh, she's a lawyer.
Same. Yeah. They don't get, I remember my dad even saying like, Mona, are you sure you want to leave this job? Like you've got to, my mom's also like gotten frustrated because my brother's also has his own business. He's an entrepreneur. And she'll come visit us from New York. She'll be like, man, like you guys are always so stressed out. I just wish you guys both had a 9-to-5 job. And I was like, you realize that's hell for us, right? Like,
that would be a million times more stressful.
Yeah. So, but now that I've gotten a few, like now that I've actually made money in 2017, like I made enough money where they could see and they saw like, me do a few like speaking engagements or like brand deals. And then they were like, now my mom's like, not that she wasn't, she's like my biggest fan now. Yeah. Like now they get it. See it. Now they see it. So it just took a while for them to see it.
So how, at that point, when you're going back to the pharmacy, how often are you posting on social? What kind of content are you posting? What's even like the short-term goal at that point?
So at that point, I was thinking, I guess just to grow on Instagram, but to start getting brand deals was my goal. And I was still posting like, once a day, whatever. It's so funny because as of the last like 4 months, maybe my content's gotten so much more like controlled and curated and like better that I even think back, like it wasn't that long ago that I wasn't even like, didn't have like a certain vibe or look or what I was doing. I was Snapchatting a lot. Which is really easy because it's just such fast videos, but I would post content at work all the time. To be honest, like I wasn't always like the best employee, but I got the job done, but they all knew I was never secretive. Like I'd be like, hold on. And like showing what I was eating. I was always Instagramming or Snapchatting at work. But they'd ask me, they were so cool. Like I'm so appreciative of them. Like it was the best job I could have had. And it was also the one good thing about pharmacy, when you work for an independent, it's more laid back where if like I couldn't work one day, if I could find any pharmacist that they like knew to cover for me, they can. So it's not like anyone has to know what if you're a pharmacist, you could fill in. Like there's so many days someone would be like, hey, do you want hours at this store Thursday? And that's kind of cool. Like you could just make a little extra money when you want to. So that was helpful.
So when did you start getting brand deals and who were some of the first brands that reached out to you?
Well, it's like the very end of 2016. I had a friend of a friend approached me. It was these 2 kids, one from London and one from Germany. And they both lived here now, or one of them did, but they were in like the online course business. And one of them had created this course in Europe. And like, he was telling me like I should make an online course. And, I thought about it and I was like, you know what, this is like my first product. Like, let me do it and like see. That was like one of the best choices I made.
So how many followers did you have at that time? Like, when did you feel like it was appropriate to actually have your own product?
Well, so I think I was around like 85,000 followers or 90,000 on Instagram. But I had never tried to sell anything. I had no idea if they would convert. Like, the thing that got me was like when they had sold a course, they didn't have any social media and it still did well. So they were like, look, this can only help. Like, we can help you do it. But I had no email list. Like, I didn't even know to build an email list at that point.
So is this Hot and Healthy?
This is Hot and Healthy. Yeah.
So yeah, if you can give a little bit of background on exactly what Hot and Healthy is and what did people want to hear from you about?
So I think the most common thing was, a lot of my audience is health conscious and they know they want to be healthy. That's probably why they follow me. And they understand like chia seeds are healthy. I should have smoothies. But I've got this extra 5 pounds that I can't lose. I'm really busy. I get home from work and I'm exhausted and I can't afford ordering out. And so it was the same thing, like the time, the effort, and like what's not really working. So the whole course is me teaching them, like, it's not like, oh, follow this exact diet and this is going to work. It's like helping them shift their mindset into learning to love certain things and like be a certain way. You can like train your taste buds. You can end up finding something that you really love that inspires you, because I used to hate it too. And when people ask like, how are you so disciplined? Like, how do you have such self-control? I'm like, I'm not, I just enjoy it. And that's like the place I wanted to get them all to. So a lot of it is on getting the right mindset and shifting it. And a lot of it's like little tricks, like, okay, when you go out to a restaurant, here's how you order without being obnoxious. You should always have these in your pantry or cabinet so that you don't ever have to like order out fast food or whatever. Like, there's no meal plan to it. I did actually just upgrade it with a 7-day sample meal plan just because so many people wanted it. And I was like, here's a kickstart, like here's an example. And we just built it from there. So is Ashley still the person you're talking to? Yep. Ashley's still the person. Yeah. And it's just really great. I love the feedback that I get from it. Like, I'm really proud of it because it's something that's like all on my own that I built. So I think Hot and Healthy was the first thing that my parents saw that I like had that did well. And that was actually working. And we called it, actually, we weren't even going to call it Hot and Healthy. The guy one of the founders of the company was like, joking. And he was like, so Mona, have you always been hot and healthy? We were all laughing and we were like, we should call it that. And then we went through names and we're like, well, it kind of works because every girl wants to be hot and there's nothing wrong with that, guy, girl. But it's not just about being skinny. That's what I always say. Like, if you just like don't eat, that's not sexy. Like, so it's about being healthy and hot. Like, you got to have that glow. You've got to like have energy. You actually have to have like muscle tone instead of just starving yourself. So we thought it was a good mix. So I want to talk about this a little bit because I think people think that being an influencer either A, kind of comes easy and B, doesn't require strategy, and C, you can just make money from being an influencer, which I think at a certain level you definitely can. Right. But after you left the pharmacy, you're still consulting. Yeah, definitely. I have 2 clients that I have personal. I took a step back from that because I'm so busy now that I don't really have the time unless it's someone who really like is a high paying client that has enough, I can afford to like give that much of my time to. I actually really liked one consulting deal I got with this company. They're opening up like this hotel in Costa Rica and like a wellness center. And they wanted like just advice and like how, what they should have in their wellness center, like what are the new like wellness initiatives. So that was really cool. That was a different experience. But Hot and Healthy has been something that's really like given me enough to like be able to go out and do it on my own. And then from then just really taking the time, like I invested in like, a photographer and like an editor so that my content is clean and curated. And that's when like I started getting like better brand deals. So the other big deal I got right after that was with the skincare company Solwasu, which is like, a skincare line that I've used for years. It was the best fit. And they hired me to do like 4 media events for them and like speaking engagements and just, post and represent their company. And honestly, that was a dream come true. I got that call on my birthday or got the email and I was like, oh my God, it's so crazy. So that was one of those like pinch me moments. Cause that's like what I wanted to do was like a luxury skincare line that I love, like represent. So did they reached out to you? You weren't outbounding? Nope. They reached out to me. They found me. I remember them being like, what's your rate? And I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, why don't you offer me a rate? And they sent it. I was like, I'll take it. So the flip side of that, have you ever promoted something you regret or that you really didn't use? There was one thing that I promoted and it was like, It wasn't so much that like I'm against it, but I definitely didn't use it. And you know what's so funny? It was like a really small promotion. They wanted me to post it in my story, and it was on brand enough, but there was like a little bit of guilt in it, to be honest, because I don't really use it. And like, I didn't like that I was like leading on. And I think what made me feel really bad was that I got some DMs where they were like, hey, I want to order it. Like, what do you like? And then it just like this weird guilt came over me. I guess not weird, but I actually really care about my community. So when I remember one girl being like, hey, I think she lived in Canada. I can't get this product. Like, can I get a different brand? And I was like, yes, get another brand. I felt so bad. I was like, no, just do your own thing, So that was definitely a lesson learned. I don't know.
So was your Instagram growth pretty slow and steady, or how were you community building at that time to even get to like 80K?
I had a marketing team that I worked with right after the initial investor that I worked with. And they did a lot of like really great shout outs for me on pages that would be like of my interest, like beauty pages, health pages, fitness pages, like anything female oriented. So that helped for a while, but then that market got a little bit saturated, and Instagram's algorithms changed so much that even shout outs used to do so much and now they don't. So it was hard because I was growing really fast and then it stopped, and it was like very slow and steady. And to be honest, it's been like just starting to like slowly progress, but I think I just stopped focusing so much on it and on the numbers and just really started focusing on content. And even like I've gotten a few more brand deals in this year that I was just shocked at the number they were offering, which is, and it's crazy because you think you have to have this really high number to get that. But people really care about the content you're putting out, your community, your engagement. It's so much more important.
And something we were talking about before this podcast is how important community is, and what a good job Mona does responding to the people who do engage with her and engage with her content. And I think people have this number in their head that they think that they really need to hit in order to be an influencer. And you can have this massive influence and make good money, let's say from a program like Hot and Healthy or something that adds value that your community genuinely wants.
Right.
And you don't need 1 million followers so that somebody will pay attention to you.
Right. I mean, think about it. Like if you have like 20,000, that's 20,000 people like across the world that are like listening to you, like, and if you're really engaged, and especially if it's something like in your niche, the online course, they worked with this other guy who's like, I think middle-aged. He has a YouTube channel on woodworking, and he is crushing it because people
niche.
It's a niche. Like those people that care about woodworking. It's so funny. They're like, yeah, we're going to build our own tables now that we've watched his course. I was like, do it. Like,
yeah. And something else I was saying to Mona before this, because I've talked to so many people who, you get hung up on the number. They're like, I'm not growing. And it's like, but you have 90,000 people who give a shit about what you have to say.
You used to say that to me, remember? Yeah. I would like freak out, and she'd be like, Mona, perspective.
Yeah. It's like, I get it. Like, I know you're hanging out with these people who just have all these followers, but some of them probably weren't real.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like, yeah, you have 90,000 people who care. How many people can say that they have 90,000 real people who care about what you have to say?
It's a big deal. And I think like even having that like appreciation and respect for that. And one thing I feel like I've really done this whole time is I almost feel like I owe it to them. Like they're giving me their attention, like they're following me. So I better make it worth their time. Like I better give value. I better like always provide. Like you can't ask so much. And I think that's one thing that's really helped. Because I noticed I even had friends who like we'd be out going to like a dinner or a club, and I'm like responding to Instagram comments, and they're like, chill, you don't need to do that. Like what I'm like, I do though. Like
you feel like you have a responsibility.
I have a responsibility, totally.
And honestly, just with clients that I've seen and throughout, the last few years of being in this industry, those are the people who end up crushing it. That is what you need to do. You need to be engaging. It's not someone else kind of doing it on your behalf. It's giving a shit about your audience. And now you're seeing that it works.
Exactly. And I'm even like paying more attention to like every piece of content I post. I want to like give value, or like I don't know. I'm thinking about them. Like, how can I help them?
So how far in advance then are you mapping out your content, or how are you thinking about your content and growing your community now?
So it's always changing. Like, it's so funny because I keep thinking like, okay, I'm going to start doing this and I'm going to have it like planned out. And it ends up getting rocky along the way. But as of right now, I'd love to have it planned out like 3 or 4 weeks in advance on a roadmap. But then of course, when I'm in real time, I can plug in, like, let's say I travel somewhere and I really want to post something that's real time. Stories are always in real time. Snapchats are always in real time. But, like we just pre-filmed like a week ago, like, 4 or 5 like holiday videos and things that will help people during the holidays. I think that's actually like a really good point. I was in Cabo with some friends recently, and one girl asked me to sit down and like she wanted to grow her Instagram, and she really likes, her thing is like deep connections with people. She wants to help like especially like younger girls and kids like really like be them true selves, not be afraid to speak up. And she doesn't know how to put a label on it. And I was like, why do you have to put a label on it? Just start building the content and then figure it out later, And she was like, well, how does your page look so clean and curated? And I was like, well, I plan it out. I color edit it. And she's like, well, that doesn't feel authentic to me. And I'm like, it can be authentic if you're not pretending it's in the moment. Just be real. Like, you don't have to say in your caption, like, doing this right now, you can just, but it's okay to care and plan, because that's what helped. It's almost like you're publishing a magazine or something for people to see.
Yeah, I've made this point before because when I was working for Gary, I was posting a lot of pictures of me on the beach and on vacations. And
you were in New York City.
I was in New York City. I was working, 50 to 20 hours a day. Like, I'm not on vacation, but if you watch my stories or if you watch my snaps, and if anybody would ever ask, I'd always say, nope, I'm at work. I never pretended I was anywhere else.
Right, then who cares?
Yeah, and so I ended up having to write a whole article because somebody was like, congrats on the lifestyle. Like, it's so awesome. You get to work for Gary and then you're traveling all the time. And I'm like, no. I don't, if you get that impression, I don't want to give anyone that impression ever, because I'm working my face off.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think, and she even said like, she had a 2-year-old and she was like, I'm in the middle of a vacation. Like, I don't want to have to think about Instagram. I was like, that's why you can plan it ahead. You can, you know what I mean? Like that. And I think now she started doing it. Her page looks amazing. Like, she's doing great. And like, it's okay.
But I also think that there is a spot for somebody who, let's say they do only want to post things that are more in the moment. Yes, that's going to be hard, or maybe take a more real approach in quotes. I know that's not how Instagram initially got started, but just generally, people have been moving towards like a more raw and real.
I do agree with that too.
Kind of vibe, like through Snapchat and stories. So if she did kind of want to do the raw, real Instagram, I don't think that'd be a bad thing. I think it'd be interesting. So if that's something to consider.
That's what I told her too. I was like, if you want to do it though, you have to stop in the middle of this and do it. And I think that's where she found the balance. I actually have a good friend who only posts like in the moment, doesn't filter, but that's her brand. Like, that's her thing.
Yeah, you have to own it. Then it has to become your brand. You can't do half curated, half in the moment.
Right, exactly. And you know what? Her curated stuff doesn't do as well, because it's just
because they want the real. And something that Mona's done just an excellent job at recently is lives. And I think that's really where people are connecting, and I think you get a really good sense of who your audience is by the questions that they're asking. And I want to give props to you. And also just maybe if you could even talk a little bit about your live strategy.
It's so nice because Lauren
Everett, who's also the queen of doing lives and being real and authentic. Both of you are two brands that I really look to.
Thank you. She was just telling me, she was like, I love your lives more than anyone's live. And I was like, that's like, now that I've heard it twice, it means a lot.
It's very hard to pull off live, and you guys do it.
It's, it's something that the feedback I've gotten from it is that you can, even from like stories, you can tell, but something about a live, you can like really get someone's vibe and personality because it's just so in the moment. So that's really cool to see, because I tend to be like very poised in pictures and whatever. So I think that rawness is like a good way to connect even more to people. Lives are a little scary because you never know what you're going to get asked on there. It's like, and it's so...
You can't control who joins.
You can't control who joins. There is one thing I learned. My web administrator taught me this thing. He has all these little hacks, but you can put in your comment section, you can block words from being said on your live.
Okay.
You can block words from being said in your comments. So every whatever. Actually, this one big blogger posted a blog on it. So we just took her list and added our own. Still doesn't help because people will just add an extra letter to it and like figure it out.
People just have to get their profane comment into your live.
I'm like, that's honestly like, I want someone so badly to interview these people. I'm so curious how their brain works.
Who they are.
I want to know how it works. I want to know what they're thinking. But anyway,
we were talking about this before, that there seems to be like a magic hour when I'm watching someone's live, and there's all these perverts, and I don't, I can be as honest as I want on my fucking podcast. Yeah. And it's just so crazy. Like, I'll see Lauren's live, I'll see your live.
And they're like, boobs.
If it's at like the 5 p.m. Pacific time or 6 p.m., it is just inundated.
It's so bad. And I'm also like, a lot of them tend to be like in other countries. And I'm like, is it a language barrier? But it'll be like, take off, shirt, take off.
Yeah,
like,
no, there's no language. They know enough.
They know enough. I'm like, you learned just the right words to say it. So it's hard. I either ignore them if it's like too bad. I'll hide them from my live. But I try to just focus on the people who are like actually asking questions. It's one thing is funny is like, I think the question I get asked most is like, what do you do for dark circles? What do you do? And like, sometimes so I always say like, sorry to the people who have heard this a million times. I'm just going to repeat it again.
I was going to ask, how do you handle getting repeat questions all the time? Because I'm sure it's, it's vegan questions. It's questions about certain skin things, dark spots.
Dark circles, dark spots. Are your eyelashes real? Those are like my most common questions.
I actually know the answers because I watched your lives.
You watch them. I talk about them all the time. I'm like, I need to wear a shirt on my lives that say I have eyelash extensions. Even Erica, my friend Erica, does a lot of live. Yeah. I actually love having someone else on my lives.
I really like having her. First of all, Erica's the best. And I really like watching her on your lives
She's so cute, and it's fun to like play off of somebody. So whenever she can, she's coming over tonight. We're going to bake pizza. We're having a Friday night girls in. But having that's fun. But she's like, if one more person asks about dark circles, I can't. That's why she's like, let's start doing them like on themes. I'm like, I know.
I've actually started thinking about it a lot because now that I've been talking about a lot of the branding stuff and being more public, people do have the same questions. And I was just thinking about Gary a lot and like, he literally gets asked the same questions.
Does he answer them all the time? Because I haven't seen his live in a while.
Not in live, like in life. Like anywhere he goes, people are asking basically essentially the same entrepreneurial questions, the same business questions, the same questions over and over again. And he gives the answers, but he's given the same answers for so many years. I just wanted to ask him how he doesn't go insane.
That's a really good thought because he's like, the social media of all.
And everybody, he answers the questions on social. He'll answer them in a meeting. He answers the same questions that, he goes to speak. People come see him for like a K-Swiss thing and everyone's asking the same questions. Oh my God. How does he... I think he's a beast. But I just want to know if he...
We should ask him that because now I'm curious.
That's something I just have to know because I know if I'm giving the same answers, he's been doing it for, 20 times longer than I have.
Seriously. And he can handle it. I'm like, all right, just keep going.
Just talk about the eyelashes one more time.
One more time. Just ask me. I'm like, do you think they're this long on their own? Because I don't have a health trick for that.
Well, maybe Latisse, actually.
Latisse, maybe. One thing I did on my my housekeeper was here and I was like, she was really late and I was like, I have to do a live thing. So we can't like vacuum during this time. She's like, okay. So I'm like doing it. And then I get groceries. I sound like such a brat right now, but I get groceries delivered. It's $100 a year. It's like the best thing ever. So my groceries came in the middle of my live and I was like, oh, let me grab them. She like handed them to me. So I started going through and that was cool. Like something in the moment. And that actually like, I was on top live at that time. And as I was like pulling out groceries, it went up like to 500, 600, 700, kept going up. And I think maybe like having a prop or doing something interested people. So that was cool.
Well, yeah. And also people are looking to you for that lifestyle wellness. Right. Like, is she really eating the stuff that she's saying? Like, What did she actually order?
I'm actually thinking of, I'm going to start a weekly newsletter. And I'm thinking right in January after I launch Hot and Healthy for the last time. I want to start doing like Tuesday tips and like every week doing it. And I'm thinking every week I take a picture of my receipt too, because I feel like people would really love to see that.
I think that'd be awesome.
Right?
So Hot and Healthy is going to be open permanently though. It's not done for the last time.
So we're opening it in January one more time, like for a limited time. And then after that, at some point, we're going to open it permanently. But that's like our next big launch. I never know when we're going to reopen it because some people will like literally DM me like an hour later and be like, I want to join. It's like it's such a thing. Everyone waits. And then I'm like, I'll tell you when it's so in January, we're going to reopen it. And then that'll be my last like big launch that I'm doing. At some point, I'll reopen it forever.
So do you do kind of different like special lives for the people who sign up for Hot and Healthy, or they have access to send you emails or anything like that?
They're on an email list, and I have a really good customer service team that like, because my emails get so like DMs. Yes. Like even I felt guilty when we were talking like about DMs. I have so many that I can't respond to that I want to.
And the Instagram platform, just the DM. It's just not the greatest.
It's a mess because then I always have at least 15 notifications because then like sometimes I want to read it but can't answer right away. Then I look rude. So I just leave them. It's just like a whole thing, right?
I've done it.
I can't even open it. But I have a really good team that will, if something is like really pressing, they'll get a hold of me and do it. But like I was telling you, I really wanted to do something to engage my community more. So maybe that could be it. Maybe my Hot and Healthy members, I have a private Facebook group for them. Something. I want a platform now where they can tell me more about their lives and I can like get to know them. That's what I'm trying to go for.
Yeah, we were talking before this too about Facebook groups and just how I've joined a few recently and how community building it really is.
It's so cool.
And it's a really good way, I think, to really get to know the people and then allow them to build their own community within your community.
Right.
So you don't need to be doing it all the time.
That's what's special. I think the theme of this last like 6 months or so was like, I am so focused on my community. Like, what do they want? What do they want me to put out? Like, how can I be of more value or help them? And like, that's what's helped me, not like the most, I think.
Yeah. And just being honest and real with them.
Mm-hmm.
There's no tricks. Like for anybody who's looking for this shortcut, who wants the like easy brand deal or whatever it is, it's putting in work.
Yep.
Which brings me to my next question. The work that is involved to actually build your brand and how are you managing your time? Can you give a typical day just in your content world and like how much you do versus content versus distribution, all of it?
I actually I'm so hard on myself. I feel like even now I'm like constantly like, what can I do to like manage my time better? Because I mean, honestly, there's like never like an hour of the day that I'm not thinking about it or not doing it or not working on it.
Yep.
Usually my day is like, now that I've gotten some like bigger brand, I've learned when you get a bigger brand deal and if someone's actually paying you good money, they are very picky. Like,
yeah, I'm sure.
It's interesting. Like, I had, take a photo. We take a photo. Like, can you send us what, like, I sent them like 30 options. We want a little more like this or your story. We want you to like talk a little more about this when you do it. And it has to still be authentic. So when I have a couple of those that I've been working in the last few weeks, that's taken up a lot of my time, but all day I'm like posting content on Instagram stories and Snapchat. Then I'm usually like, I do shoots maybe 2 or 3 times a month. And I have to go through the selects, pick which ones I like put them in the feed, curate them. I'm also working on building YouTube. So then I have to schedule like 2 shoots for that every month. They're like, I try to do it like once or twice a month. So it's still current. So then I have to, and also when you're doing a lot of it on your own, like until you get to a point where you have all the footage in your camera, just transferring it like to someone to edit it took me like 5 hours one night because the file was too big. Like now I might have to like actually go drive it to him and do it. And then even something as simple as a shoot, when you take pictures, you have to find a location that matches. I was going to
say, how much goes into it? Where are you even shooting?
Like this was before when I first started, it was like poor Erica would take pictures for me. And then I started paying her when I could actually afford to. And still, that's what I was doing, kind of editing them myself. Then when I really wanted to step it up, I was like, I need to hire a photographer. So I had to like interview and find. And then even when you first work with a photographer, like, I'm like, I like these angles. I like this lighting. Like that took so much time to like get in a groove with. So then like we plan a shoot and I'm like, okay, what kind of content can I shoot that resembles my real life, but that I can make look aesthetic and like get my message across, especially when you're doing something like wellness. It's not just about clothes. Like you have to give value in every photo, like everything. There's so much thought. So he comes over like 7:30 or 8 a.m. We want to get like the good light outside. We go
Obviously.
We go to different, like there's great, when it's too sunny, it's like hard and you don't want the streets to be too busy because there's too many people out. Take away the awkwardness. It's just hard to actually get the photo with people staring at you in the middle of the street.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to do the casual walk in the street.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And the really,
and we're in LA, so it's not even like that shocking, but people still stop and just look.
Melrose Place, I was at yesterday shooting, and there's probably 6 shoots going on, so it was like super normal there, not even kidding. But when you're like anywhere else, people just stop and stare like you're an alien, and I'm like, oh God. And the more awkward you look in a photo, the better it comes out when you're like swinging your arms and stuff.
That's so true.
It's so funny.
The more uncomfortable it is, the better it looks.
Yeah. So doing that, like getting all like the clothes ready, like finding a location, then going to the location, hoping. I've also found this little trick, which is probably not the best, but don't ask if you can take photos. Just do it until they stop you because they usually will say no, but usually you can just do it.
Yeah.
So it's like, ordering a bunch of food, spending a bunch of money on a bunch of food because you want to photograph it and make it look nice and then not eating it or taking it with you. So all of that, it's just a lot of energy. Then you come home and you have to unpack everything and then you have to pick them. It's a lot of work, like all of it.
And you also have a stylist. Like there's all these people that go with it. Your stylist is amazing.
My stylist is amazing. I found her like a year ago. And that's even something that might seem like a little bit like too much, but it really, really makes a difference. Like just having someone like help because, I'm not, so to make a photo look beautiful, there's a lot that goes to it. And I don't think that everyone has to do that for their brand, but I think that when it's like when something's aesthetically pleasing, like you stop at it and you look at it and you can like enjoy the beauty of like the background or the fashion or the colors of the food. So there's so much that goes into it. It's not just like, and you know, the realness is like what the stories are for and what the Snapchats are for. But like when you want your page to have like a beautiful layout, there's a lot.
So much work goes into it, especially it doesn't really matter what industry, but that is something that in the beauty and wellness space,
Right.
it really matters. Like
It
it's
does.
not, you can't just take like some guys can do the up nostril shot and they give you like a piece of business advice and you're like, yeah,
Exactly.
it's a whole other game.
Even Gary and their team, they're like, don't worry about like filters. I'm like, you guys don't get this industry.
That's why I was the one you went to on Gary's team to talk.
It was basically you and all guys. And I was like, let me go to you because you understand.
Yeah, no, I'm never posting a picture that I don't like of my, even with me, you know, and my brand isn't so much beauty and wellness. It's more
but you're
about
a woman
branding.
too at the same
Yeah.
time. Like you care what you look like and it's what you're putting out there.
And it does matter. And I think something comes out too, if you're taking care of yourself, I do think it makes you not necessarily more credible in whatever space, but the fact that if you put in the effort, like it shows you put in good work.
You know what? I always like to give people an example when someone like takes offense to that or, you know, shouldn't matter. Like if you get into a car that's filthy, like stuff everywhere, coffee cups or like a house, you're going to not get like the best energy and vibe. But if you get into like a really clean, nice smelling car, like there's no mess or like a house that's like, you know, really spotless, like you're going to respect that space more.
That's what it is. It's a respect issue to do the work. So
Right.
So you'd expect that just across the board, they have a respect. That's why
Right.
like the Four Seasons, even with customer service.
It's a first impression you have when you see something. Like, is it pleasing to the eye? Do you get good energy from it? So I feel like when you're an influencer, it's like you're publishing a magazine and you're the model, the author and the producer and like the editor. You're basically just creating content for someone.
But social is also so quick. So that first impression can happen at any second. You know, it's not like, okay, I got to go to this hotel and then have that impression. Your impression is literally there kind of all the time. And anyone can find it at any moment.
And when they're scrolling, like, is it good enough to make them stop?
Yep.
And engage with it. So you have to think about all of that. And I mean, I've experimented with so many different things when I was just posting, when I started like increasing exposure, like that brightness really made people like, you know, it was more positive, I think, for like a health brand. Like if you're a health and wellness or beauty, like you don't want everything to be blacks and reds because it's a little like more vixeny, you know, you want like blues, you think of water and fresh. So there's a lot that
white
goes into it.
and light and colors, like fresh fruits and vegetables.
Right.
So what's been the hardest part then for you about growing your brand?
What's been I think one of the hardest parts was just creating like stories and Instagram stories and Snapchats. I'm like such a perfectionist, and sometimes it would stop me from creating content. Be like, oh, I don't look good in this, or I don't have a good angle. And I think that's okay when it comes to your feed, but when it comes to stories, I just learned like just do it because people want the content, and you're probably focusing on things they're not. And sometimes when you know, when it's like more real, they appreciate it more. So I think at least on those platforms, when I'm just like really quick and in the moment, that was really hard for me to get past, but now it's okay. Also, focusing on myself. I think it's good to know what else is out there, but I think there was a long time where I was like focusing so much on what everyone else was doing and like, should I also do that? And like,
that's where the magic happens too, where, I mean, a lot of our conversations have been just kind of talking about strategy that way and getting out of, it's such a comparison game when you're kind of looking at what everyone's doing, and that's not when the magic happens. The magic has obviously happened for you when you stop looking at what other people are doing and you're just like, what does my audience want? What do I want them? What kind of value can I provide for them?
Right,
and vice versa.
It's different for everyone.
Because the person that you're looking at probably has completely different expertise. They're probably not a pharmacist. It's probably a different lifestyle. Even if they're vegan, let's say, it's just a different game. They're not you. You have your
100%. Like, and everyone, and I think when you own like what you have, everyone has something like a little unique to them and their own thing. You know, there's a million like food bloggers and vegans and beauty bloggers, but like find what's different with you. Actually, I started working with a new team and we were like picking a new filter that I'm going to start using just so I can post more in real time. And they sent over, and I love Mariana Hewitt. She's always been like, I just think her page send me over these filters and it looks so much like hers. And they're like, this is very Mariana. I was like, no, I don't want to be like that.
Be very Mona.
It has to be, like I don't want to copy someone else. Like it has to be my own thing. So we're like adjusting and fixing
because you don't want that. You don't want someone to look at you. The worst would be for someone to look at your page and say, hey, this looks like Mariana's.
Exactly.
Because then they'll just go look at Mariana's.
Exactly. And it's not, and also like her page is beautiful, but it's not me. It's like a little, it's very like romantic and soft. I think
that's exactly what it's like. Parisian.
Yes, it's amazing, but it's just not my brand.
Yeah, no, I couldn't pull off the Mariana Hewitt Parisian vibe all of a sudden.
It is very Parisian.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
So I ask everyone this question: what do you think the secret to influence is?
Oh man, the secret to influence. I think giving more than you take or ask. Just keep providing value, and I think when you do that and you build like a loyalty to people, then they'll be loyal to you back.
It's true.
What do you think?
I think it's loyalty and trust. But loyalty and trust comes from providing value.
Right.
But they have to trust you. That's really the secret. Like people come to you with their health issues, their skin issues, these things that are also very vulnerable, and they trust you to give that advice. That's influence. That's
like, I mean, you put it much better than me. That's such a strong point, because I told you, I felt such a responsibility with that. Like, I can't consciously like feel good about recommending something that I don't really believe in, because they will buy it and they'll listen, they trust me. So there's a big responsibility to that.
And who do you look to for influence generally, whether it's in the health space or just kind of for advice? Who do you look to?
Sometimes there's certain, like, even like, honestly, Lauren's a huge inspiration to me. I love how she handles her community. Like Gary and his team are amazing. Like, I mean, you were on it, so you know. So that's always been, that's probably who I go to the most, is like when I want real advice like that. But I think that's it. I really get a lot of inspiration watching other people. When I see someone else work, it's funny, when I see someone working really hard and hustling, it like really pushes me to work harder. And then I think back and I'm like, that's what I'm doing when I'm providing wellness content. When they see me living this way or eating this way, that's what inspires them. So that was like a big like take home to me too.
So what's next for you? What's the next big kind of dream and hump to get over? Is it going to be products? Are you coming out with clothes yet? What's happening?
I think that 2018, I'm hoping will be a lot more brand deals to help like keep me, and I think that's something I'm really interested in, like products that I like. But my biggest goal is something skincare related, like my own product. I'm very, very like wary on not doing it unless it's 100% the right way and it's branded the right way. So I want to do it. I just have to figure out, it's like, what exactly am I going to come out with first? How do I want to do it? Like, what will be the best? So I've actually been thinking about that a ton, because I want to start something like that in 2018. Just to know what best would be.
So where can people find you?
On Instagram, actually across the board, I'm at Dr. Monavand. So it's DrMonavand.
Thank you so much. I just have to say it again. Mona is so great at what she does. Like, there's a reason people are coming to her for the health and wellness stuff. And I mean, I really love and enjoy her content, and I just can't say enough good things. And I'm not in the business of kissing ass on this podcast. I like legitimately love her content and love what I've seen. So please check her out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so nice.
Thank you for listening to Beyond Influential. If you found value in this week's episode, please rate and subscribe on iTunes. I'd love to know who you find influential. You can let me know on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Brittany Crystal, Krystle, or visit my website, brittanycrystal.com.
Beyond Influential.